screen. That looks good. Over to you. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, clearly.
Regarding this online presentation, I direct your attention to Doc Holliday's deathbed scene in the movie Tombstone, where he says, "It appears my hypocrisy knows no bounds." In this room, there is stillness, and the stillness has gone tense. The room is waiting for something to happen. I could light the fire, but my friend forgot to leave me any logs. I could turn on a lamp, but there is no animal feeling in electricity. I stand up again and walk over to the phonograph and switch it on without changing the record that I played this morning. The music strengthens and moves about, catching the pictures, the books, and the discolored white marble mantelpiece as firelight might have done. Now the place is no longer a cave, but a room with walls that listen in peace. You pack a small bag, khakis and jeans, sweater, t-shirts, socks, and a computer bag with cables, phone, a bunch of the small gifts you've been asked to bring, and the papers in your group. Red Converse sneaks are on your feet. It takes 3 flights to reach Willard Airport in Savoy, Illinois. Landing, the plane flies in low over big cornfields. The University of Illinois maintains conference facilities at a place called Allerton Park. A volunteer corrals you with the others who will shuttle with you to Allerton. The drive out there takes forever, across nothing. Nothing. It's flat farmland, flat to every horizon line, wind sweeping across with hardly a hindrance, sky filling every sight line so that even this autumn day harbors a tickling dread. From the side window, it feels like being in the fields. The roads align on a grid, the towns at grid intersections. The place names are strange: Farmer City, Rantoul, Lake of the Woods, Philo, Tolono, Whiteheath, Tuscola, Mahomet, Arcola, Olney, home of white squirrels, Mattoon, Pisodum, and even a Foosland. Along this road are signs of a different kind of place. Seed signs of all types. No personal car. You're stuck here for 4 days and 4 nights in this emptiness of nowhere. You begin to regret the decision to come. You're not presenting a paper, that's not the point. You've submitted a draft, a work in progress they called it, and you were assigned a shepherd who helped you revise it. Then the program committee looked at it. Backwards. Your paper has been a bitch, actually. You feel like you've been spinning your wheels. You've also been sent other drafts with instructions to read them and prepare for discussion. You haven't done it, figuring you can get away with a quick sideways glance at some point. Suddenly the prairie ends and you're in the woods. A small road takes you into Allerton Park and then to the mansion. You load out, head inside, check in, get your room number. You head to your room, up the grand staircase and down a long hall that squeaks every step. The room is big, and it's not the Holiday Inn. You stand there, just standing still. The big room, the crocheted bedspread, the bay window looking over a pond to a field. The light soft and calming. You relax. You like the room. You watch the oak leaves glisten. You go down and read your email in the gallery, a place the conference chair said was a place to hang. You hadn't signed up for the boot camp, but the newcomer's introduction in the library tells you the structure of the week. First up, games. You've heard of corporate icebreaker games and thought them silly. These games are led by a nerd with a German accent. There's a big parachute. You crawl under it as instructed. Fall flat. You and some others laugh at the goofiness. You have mud on your sweater, the only one you brought. Then tennis balls bouncing on the parachute while everyone around it holds its edge and flails the edge up and down. Then a game to learn people's names, and finally a rain game to simulate a rainstorm coming up, then passing. Will anything serious ever happen? What kind of conference is this? Why are we here? They said the pizzas would arrive at 6:30 p.m. They missed by an hour. 20 Papa Del's deep dish pizzas. These pizzas are no joke. 2 slices are a little too much. Most of the first-time attendees have never before seen pizza like this. There's beer, wine, sodas. That and the pizzas are served in a solarium, a sort of patio with a wall of doors and windows opening out to the pond and field beyond. Off to bed. The program says breakfast is from 7:30 to 8:30 in the morning. It's mid-September and you leave some windows open and the air conditioner off. Every few minutes the world outside jumps silently, splashed with a flickering light, clouds illuminated from above, singular trees in snapshot. It's heat lightning at Prairie's Edge. Morning and you walk down the grand staircase, down the hall, and into the former stables where a buffet line awaits. Grits, eggs over hard, sausage, bacon, flapjacks, cereal, biscuits and gravy, coffee, tea in bags, and orange juice. All your meals will be here, including a banquet-style dinner on the last night of the conference. The table you choose is welcoming, and the talk is about the work and what people do. Some of these people will be in your workshop. Your group is assigned to the butternut room, a realm of books, warm wood, soft lights, a view to woodlands and the big field. You head for the leather couch beneath the windows. It's soft from years of use. Sitting next to you is the German you don't yet know at all, and on the other side is Swede from the parachute game. The last ones in have to drag a few chairs from the adjoining room. The facilitator goes over the writer's workshop method. A writer's workshop. The author whose paper is under discussion must say nothing at all, remaining like a fly on the wall, silent to listen attentively to the comments of those who have read and reflected on his draft. Now you see why reading and marking drafts beforehand is important. Welcome to the Pattern Languages of Programs Conference, PLOP. You're up early the next morning for a slow, long walk. You like solitude, a pause, the timeout, space and time to clear your mind, to play back recent events and thoughts that came in the night. Allerton's grounds welcome long wanderings, both physical and mental. You head out to the north and happen on a vine-lined walkway. Following it, you stumble into the Foo Dog Garden. 2 rows of 11 blue ceramic Chinese Foo Dog sculptures, which line up with the house of the Golden Buddhas. Turning southwest, you pass a gatehouse, the girl with the scarf sculpture, a sculpture of Adam, the Chinese maze garden, the avenue of the Chinese musicians. You stop here to look at the different musicians and their instruments. It is such a strange place, weird, almost uncanny. This isn't a standard conference venue. It's not a convention center, a set of university classrooms, though it is part of a university. You're not staying at a Marriott or Hyatt, nor even the Pan Pacific in Vancouver. You check your watch, and there is time before breakfast. Next, you pass down and across the sunken garden. The mansion has long disappeared from sight. The silence is eerie, no birdsong. Your leg muscles are liking it, releasing the last tensions of the trip and the office. After a good long stretch, it gets frankly weird. The death of the last centaur. This statue is far from everything, in a small clearing in a black walnut woodland. The statue is not beautiful. It's disturbing. The walnut trees have a peculiar scent. Some more wandering, and you find the grand statue, the sun singer. No one told you about the art school. Time 2022, place your basement. Time for a session, so you grab a bagel and let the dog out and go downstairs. You get on the site but forget to log on to it, so you can't find the Zoom links. On the Slack help channel, you find what you need. Behind you in the laundry room, your wife starts a load. You get in the room and see 49 in 7x7 gallery view, some with beaches behind, others with mountains, a TARDIS, the Enterprise Bridge, but most with bookshelves and walls and flags, many with headphones or headsets, all on forced mute. The session chair introduces the first speaker. Behind you, your wife yells for you to bring the towels down. You snag a seltzer upstairs and return to the talk. The speaker's head is on the right and his slides on the left. He marches ahead looking, apparently, at his laptop. You put the session Slack channel on a screen next to you and watch it for comments and questions. Outside, you notice one of the suet feeders is empty. The audio jerks and glitches, the speaker freezes. You are thrown out of the conference while failover commences. You turn off your video camera and your static avatar goes up. There are 141 people watching. You see that on the panel at the bottom. You need to watch the posted video of this talk later because it's going by too fast. After the talk, the session chair selects questions from the Slack channel. The gallery view looks like a police photo array you see on cop shows. You go over to Gathertown and find a friend there who lives in Holland. Because you know her well, her video reminds you strongly of the person she is. You chat happily for half an hour. Back on Zoom, you see some cats up on desks. Your paper is workshopped. For the first few minutes, your face turns the color of a copper beach. But then you start to really listen. People see things you knew you put in your paper, but they see other things too. A turn of argument you believe to be obvious through several totally off track. As promised, the moderator pauses to teach about pattern construction or linking patterns, or he probes one reader's half-thought, or he solicits the group for a bridge between thoughts. Slowly it dawns on you that your efforts at science reside a little less on a page of text and a little more in the groping forward of the conversation itself. The reader-listener is as much as partner in the story creation as you, the writer-speaker. Science is not and cannot be a final draft. As you listen, new thoughts begin to crop up. You see how to connect your work with other research, which would make for a larger, more robust topos. And you can see how to eliminate some of your awkward phrasing. This is a gift the group has given you. The meals are sometimes bland Midwest comfort food, and sometimes inept stabs at faraway cuisines, but are always convivial. The breaks are always ready. The art school and games are silly. You stumble upon the gorilla. The gallery and solarium are often too loud. You move through the hours, the activities, the spaces, moments of quiet and disquiet, ease and unease, and your hard leather professional persona softens a bit. The other authors who appreciated your comments on their work give you one of the gifts they brought: a puzzle keychain, a Fupe pen, a Paris tin with one truffle, a card that says Foosland Bar and Grill, food and bar, and you give some of yours and plan to do better. Every night is a sleepful night. On the way to the airport, you pass the Agrigold signs and you think, yeah, Agrigold. Home, you revise your paper, it's published, you get another new idea. What we lose when we replace place with a placeless place. I could light the fire, but my friend forgot to leave me any logs. I could turn on a lamp, but there is no animal feeling in electricity. I switch on the phonograph without changing the record that I played this morning. The music strengthens and moves about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to open the floor for questions or comments. I think you present the PLOP conference as an ideal, perhaps. I don't know whether the Splash conference falls short of the ideal, but perhaps what you're suggesting is something that other conferences should be aspiring to.
Well, there's a couple of things in your question. What we're mostly talking about is virtual conferences versus what I call terrestrial conferences. So the fact that you're in Auckland right now, for some of the people who are attending from around the world, it's kind of a strange place. The accents are funny, the food might be a little peculiar, the animals are unfamiliar. You have to deal with different ways of getting around, sort of different culture to contend with. And so part of what PLOP does is PLOP is designed to take place at that mansion and that facility. And everything there is strange. And so Splash, being in Auckland or being in Amsterdam or being somewhere else, recreates some of that strangeness. And in the essay, we present some research that shows that when a person is exposed to defamiliarizations, things that are strange and unexpected, their mind kind of opens up and they become a little bit more creative. And that research is a little bit hard to believe, but it's been repeated a number of times. And so what we're saying is that part of the conference experience is creating the next wave of science to come forward. And when you're on Zoom, you lose a lot of that. Over.
Thanks. Do your arguments apply to virtual reality as well? What about a conference in the metaverse?
Well, it's unknown to me how far we can go with that. I wouldn't be too thrilled about going into a Facebook world, but I think we have a long way to go to make something that's virtual have all of the characteristics of a physical place that makes the big difference.
Thanks. I'm handing the microphone around to the audience now, so you won't be able to see people, be able to hear their comments, I hope. Marcel is up first.
Have you tried to change things? If you're joining a virtual conference, have you tried to change?
So I think that microphone is not working.
I shall repeat his question in that case.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
No. Ironically.
You could come to the front and use this microphone here. What a brilliant idea. Thank you very much. Good. Okay. I shall rotate right.
When you join a virtual conference, have you tried to change things at home to defamiliarize with your usual surroundings? Using a special room for the conference, a cafe in your city you live, something like that. Do you think it could work?
Well, it could work in small batches like that. The other thing is that when you're socializing isn't just people talking to each other. They are talking to each other in a place. And so when this session ends and you go to lunch, you're going to be sitting there in an unfamiliar place. Whereas I'm going to go upstairs, I'm going to go make some lunch, and it's where I have lunch every day. So I can get it in bits and pieces, but I don't think I can really get it quite as strongly as if I were there. And one of the things we referred to is there's ACM did a study of virtual conferences and what to do about them. And so also with being in a physical place, your attention can't be distracted quite as readily as when you're at home. So you can do it a little, but I think there's a ways to go. I think there's research we can do to try to improve things. Over.
Thanks, Ellie. Yes.
Hi, Richard.
Hi.
I really enjoyed your talk and this idea about being at the same place in Germany. You may know they have a similar thing called Dagstuhl, where people actually encounter and work together for a week or a couple of weeks, just out in nowhere somewhere in Germany. We have a similar, but not as big thing at Aarhus University. The downside of it is that for me, sometimes I need to escape from all these computer scientists that always discuss things about computer science and nothing else. So what is your experience there? Are people discussing the same nerded things all the time, or are there other ways of sort of escaping? When we go to a conference, sometimes some of us escape and go to a restaurant because then we don't have to talk computer science, at least for a dinner. So so how was that for you?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question, and I hope that my answer does not sound very braggy, but I was involved with running OOPSLA for quite a while, and among the things that I did to try to bring some of the let's not talk to computer scientists all the time that you asked about was I would invite keynote speakers who are outside of the field, way outside of the field. I created conference venues. One of them is called Onward, for people to discuss ideas at different stages of sophistication and maturation. We put together essays so that people can kind of reflect. So you can do things to try to bring non-computer sciencey things into the fold, and that helps quite a bit, I think. One of the things I'll say as a footnote that can work well with Zoom and other things like that is if you go to a Dagstuhl for a week and you meet everybody and you see them and you interact with them, then when you go into a Zoom meeting, you're familiar with the people and their pictures and their avatars and their surroundings remind you of them. And that works better than when you just meet for the first time on Zoom. So I think you can do some things to stir the pot, as it were. Over.
Would you like to from the front, please? Sorry.
Yeah, it's good to see you again, Ole. Aarhus is a good defamiliarizing place. Oh, Mary Shaw.
Oh, yes. Hi there.
Hello.
Have we learned nothing from the pandemic? You have portrayed in-person conferences as having a special magic of their own, and you have portrayed Zoom as the depths of doom. And this is a striking dichotomy, but I wonder whether there are disadvantages and advantages on both sides, whether there is more nuance here. We have learned from the pandemic that we can survive without human contact. What I'm interested in seeing in conferences, in education, and in other things is insight into what we might have learned from remote participation over the last 2 or 3 years that we can exploit to enhance the opportunities for in-person collaboration. And it's particularly poignant that you are absent and here only virtually at this time. So you alluded in your response about to Dagstuhl about something I was also thinking about, which is the difference between initiating a personal contact and continuing one that already exists. But I'd be interested in your reflections on what disadvantages of in-person conferences might be improved by technology, and about what we might have learned from Zoom that we can take advantage of in other ways. Over.
So to start at the beginning, I don't know if you heard it, but there was a keynote earlier this morning where some lady from Pittsburgh kind of on one side or the other. And what we're doing here, comparing the terrestrial to virtual conferences, again, making the straw mans to kind of highlight the differences. So yes, of course, there's nuance in between. One of the problems with the terrestrial conferences, as you know, is that it's really impossible to totally disconnect. And so when you have other responsibilities, it's hard to work on them when you're stuck in a conference. One of the big advantages, the huge advantages of the virtual conferences is to get vastly more participation, and in particular, the participation of students who otherwise couldn't afford to show up at all. I would like there to be ways to get to know them better, but I don't think anyone has put together any sort of virtual thing that I've seen that makes it quite as nice as being there, so you can actually see them and smell them and notice how they move and look at their feet and what kind of clothes they're wearing below about here. So I think there's a lot that we can learn, and all we were trying to do was to point out this one other aspect of the terrestrial conferences, which is the strangeness of the place contributing to triggering new ideas. So that's about all I have to say. Over.
Right. And the audience may not be aware of the role that you played in that lady from Pittsburgh talking this morning.
Oh yeah, well, working with her was quite an ordeal. Perhaps I'll meet her again someday.
Perhaps that could happen. Thank you.
You want to join this?
Oh no, it's Biddle.
I have a couple of words, Richard, on behalf of my more socially conscious students, and those words are carbon footprint.
Yep.
How do we respond?
Well, I think the only way to respond is to try to figure out the virtual thing better, because the carbon footprint is one of the huge, gigantic benefits of doing it with me here and you there. So how to get the defamiliarization and estrangement? I think that speaks to organizers of conferences to think about, how can I make something unfamiliar about this place, using the conference content, the talks, sequencing them, interspersing them, maybe co-locating unusual other conferences and encouraging. But yes, carbon footprint is the largest and most measurable of the benefits of the virtual conferences. So yeah.
So
I mean, you know quite well that I'm not good at solutions. I'm good at coming up with questions. So I don't know what to do next.
Oh, I thought you said good at coming up with problems.
I was surprised that when Mary was asking, she didn't mention a conversation that we had earlier today when we were talking about online teaching. And that was the phenomenon practically universally experienced, actually not just in teaching, but in all kinds of media, whereby when you are participating from home, very frequently your home crosses the line to your virtual audience. So you see dirty dishes, your cat jumps on your head, your child pulls at your shirt needing attention. So I'd seen all of these things. My particular story was that when I was recording my videos for my teaching, I sat looking at my window and would be talking about whatever my course was about while watching squirrels at the feeder and dogs walking by. And occasionally when I started to lose my train of thought, I would mention these things to the students. And amusingly, this got the students' attention and they started paying attention more. Mary's point, which I think was quite insightful, is that it made it clear to our students that we were real people who had real lives, that we weren't basically computer science automatons in our teaching, but we're real. So I guess my thought from that was that there may be ways in which we can do better in this environment. And this reminds me of something I found paradoxical years ago when on a conference I was running. I don't think it was UPSLA, because we had many in-person meetings of committees in UPSLA. But we were discussing the possibility for another conference of whether we would have an in-person committee meeting. And everybody talked about the value. And one of the odd things that came up is that they found it less invasive to sit on a plane for an ungodly amount of hours and then in a room for another bunch of hours than it was to sit in front of their computer for a challenging amount of, say, 3 hours. 3 hours was way beyond what they could be in a committee meeting online, but they were happy to sit on a plane for half a day, in a room for another day, and another half day. So there seems to be something going on there about our expectations and our perceptions, and perhaps just how much commitment we're willing to make in our online communication. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I think what you just said and the bit about education that you said are linked in an interesting way, and I think actually in a brilliant way. And I will give you credit for this idea, which is, yes, if you, I don't know if you can see me on the screen. Can you see me on the screen?
Yes, yes, indeed. Baseball hat and
So
all.
you can notice back here are some pictures. So these are pictures of a bridge near where I grew up. And I could tell you stories about them.
Yeah.
When I was growing up,
that was close up because it was the Hopple landing page for 2 years before the conference started.
That's right. So what I'm getting at is you're the squirrels and the dogs and the suet feeders and these pictures and why am I wearing this hat? These are part of a story that I actually have put together for you guys, because this is not normally where I put this camera. I don't always wear this hat. I don't always foreground those things. And what you said is that when the students realize that you're a person with a story and there's things interesting about you, they became more engaged. Second of all, when you get on an airplane for half a day and you go to a place and then you sit in the committee meeting, then that is a new story. Whereas the story that's being told when you sit in front of your computer is the same old one. It's not an interesting story. So it's a new story. So perhaps one of the avenues for research on the virtual conferences is to figure out how, for example, you could click on me And then it would open up a realm of stories that I have prepared for you to learn who I am, why what's in the room is in the room, what I'm like when I'm not a computer scientist. And it's not just a list of my papers. It's not my website. Maybe there's a way to be able to create a entryway into a realm of stories about each of the participants. And that's a way to make the virtual conferences a little more engaging. So that's a brilliant idea, Biddle, and I'm glad you came up with it.
Through transitive credit, I will pass it on to Mary Shaw. Good to see you, Dick.
Yep.
A couple of minutes left. An online question has appeared, which you might be able to see on your screen. It's to do with the development of games. So 50 years ago, we played board games or games outdoors, and now we all play games online, and so too do 3 billion other people. So says the question. So could you imagine 50 years from now how conferences will have developed and evolved?
Yeah, so I think that as the gaming world evolves, I think that's a good path forward for making the virtual conferences more amenable to being like real ones. And even when Second Life was around, I don't know if people remember that, it was surprisingly easy to develop feelings for the characters there that you normally wouldn't have if they were just avatars or almost static pictures of themselves. So I think that going into a truly immersive world virtually might start to be able to bridge the gap. So yes, I think that's a promising way to go. Over.
Thank you. There's just a minute or two left, so I'm going to invite you and possibly your co-author to summarize your thoughts, perhaps on the basis of the discussion we've had, and then that will be the end of your contribution then. Thank you very much.
I'm not big on summarizing things, but most everything in the world that's interesting is based on a mystery and things that are unfamiliar. And the more we can make our everyday scientific lives unfamiliar, the better off we're going to be as scientists and moving science forward. Thank you.
Thank you.